Really kind of what this presentation is about. And Pat called and said, hey, I know you've recently done an update to the city as to what's going on economic development-wise and what's happening. Could you come talk to our group? So here we go. I've been here for almost 4 years now. At the end of November, it'll be 4 years that I've been here. Over that time, I think we've made some pretty good strides. But of course, other things kind of, change behind us as we move forward and whatnot. So, but I'm really thrilled at what we've done over the past 3.5, almost 4 years now. If you drive around town, I think you can definitely identify some things that weren't here prior to that. And it's not just me, it's the team doing stuff. It's not just me doing stuff. But I think over that time, we've got somewhere in the vicinity of, I'll say 80 plus new businesses that weren't here 4 years ago. They're not necessarily giant businesses. They're not. A lot of them are mom and pops, and frankly, there's stuff that Raytown should have had or did have at one point, several decades ago that just kind of disappeared, and now it's kind of starting to come back. So that's exciting to us. And really, the root of what we do, the vast majority has to do with small business and entrepreneurship. Very occasionally, we have some of the chain restaurants and some of the bigger things happen, but far and wide, Raytown is becoming more and more attractive to entrepreneurs and folks starting up businesses, and for a variety of reasons. One, because of our location, obviously we're in the middle of the metro and pretty easy to get to. Secondly, is because we have, for the most part, relatively inexpensive commercial real estate for these folks who are just starting out their businesses to get going. Now, obviously, I've passed out to you guys kind of a list of more or less positive things that have happened over the course of the past year. I kind of wear my heart on my sleeve. I don't like to hide the negative things. I typically like to bring those things up first, so I'll do that, although I don't think they're represented on the sheet that I gave to you. A couple of our disappointments this year. The YMCA obviously was was sort of a cornerstone in activities here in Raytown. The YMCA basically, after X number of years being here, decided that they were going to contract back to their original business model. Their original business model really consisted of the YMCA belongs in urban areas and places where there's really no other competition, i.e. St. Joe or Nevada, Missouri, or some of these other places where they could be kind of the big dog in a town, and folks will come from surrounding areas to go there. And this isn't really just a phenomenon that's gone on in Kansas City. On the East Coast, the YMCAs are still a huge, huge, huge deal. Being a member of the YMCA in Charlotte, North Carolina is akin to being a member of a country club in Kansas City, if you will. It's still a big deal. But they're starting to contract even out there. My brother-in-law actually happened to be a manager at a Y that was closed about 3 years ago. So this is kind of a nationwide thing that the Ys are doing, are kind of contracting back. And instead of being in Gastonia or some of the surrounding areas in the Charlotte area, they're going straight back to the urban core of Charlotte. So it's really kind of a national fundamental thing where they're kind of shrinking their businesses, or back to their business model. So the question when the Y closed was, can the city go by and can we have a community center and can we do this, that, and the other? Our initial thought was, yeah, that'd be great. Then we started to dig into the numbers. The asking price for the building, and I believe it still is there, is at $3 million. $3 million is a fraction of what it cost to actually build that structure some 15 years ago, or however long the age really is of that building. Once you get inside it, you realize there's another $2 million of deferred maintenance that has to be done to bring that building really back up to even semi-modern standards. Pool pumps and heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems, and cracks and everything.
And roofs that have leaks.
Exactly.
First 1 year after being built, a pool that leaks.
Exactly. So a lot of deferred maintenance issues in there that all of a sudden turn that $3 million entry price into $5 million just to kind of get it to a point that you can operate it. Once you do operate it, you've got competition within the Raytown area, whether it be the Rock at First Baptist Church of Raytown, or up here in Briarwood, which of course is in Kansas City, not Raytown, is Planet Fitness, where for $10 a month and no contract, you have access to all their fitness stuff. They don't have a pool, of course, and a personal trainer for no additional charge. That's tough to compete with in this market. So when you open up the Y and say, well, we have to, or as a city anyway, open up that as a community center, say we've got to charge somewhere between $70 and $100 a month just to come close to breaking even. We've already outpriced ourselves for being any form of sensible competition with anybody. And you can also argue whether or not government is supposed to be, in competition with private business, but that's for another conversation, I suppose. So anyway, with the Y, basically just came out to a dollars and cents thing. It's beyond the city's ability to buy and operate and at least sustain it. And sustain not meaning green, sustain meaning keeping the doors open, keeping the business going. Another disappointment was GE Environmental. They're building at 63rd and Blue Ridge Cutoff. I think in my first week of being here about 4 years ago, met with GE, and they said, we're probably not in here for the long haul. So they knew several years ago that they were leaving at some point. They basically needed less space. I think that building right now, if you utilize every inch of the space in that building, it's about 80,000 square feet. They need less than 40. Most of their employees already reside in Johnson County, and it also didn't help that the state of Kansas offered them a boatload of incentives to move over to the Sprint campus. Yes. So the city right now, we're working with CB Richard Ellis, which is their real estate company, as well as their real estate group in Chicago that is kind of running who this building gets sold to ultimately. I don't think there's a long line of folks looking at the building right now, but we're trying to push some folks that way. Two other quick little disappointments for the year. Save a Lot, which was this way. Save a Lot, we'd love to say it was a Raytown problem or have something that we can say, well, we can fix this and nobody else will go away. It was actually a corporate-wide problem, and Pat actually picked up on that probably before anybody else did. At their parent company, Super Value, there you go. Pat's into groceries, if you didn't know. He's really into groceries.
They closed hundreds of them.
Exactly. On the same day, Super Value closed 60 of their mega stores, which I think are kind of sort of close to a Hy-Vee. You'll debate that. But and they also closed 22 Save-A-Lots on the same day. So that was a corporate finance issue, not necessarily a Raytown issue. And then finally, and this is kind of a personal disappointment because I got to know these folks, and not a big business, but B&B Clothing, which was downtown at 63rd and Raytown Traffic Way, or Raytown Road rather. Mom and pop business, two business owners moved here from Sacramento for family reasons. I think somebody had a health reason, so they moved here. They opened this clothing store. And one of the things that being the economic development guy, I'm kind of the recipient of everybody's wish list of who they want to move to town or what kind of business they want to town. And so oftentimes I hear, we want places where we can buy, stylish clothes from younger folks, stylish clothes and, things that are a little more expensive than what we can get at Walmart or wherever else you can buy clothes. And so B&B kind of provided that. Probably the least expensive thing they had in their shop was $45 or $50 or something like that. And they just sank like a rock. And some of that was maybe their location. A lot of it actually, I think, probably fell back to them. And I think they'd admit that you can't just open your door and hope for the best. You've got to go out and market and let folks know you exist and what you do and why they should come see you. So anyway, that was just kind of a business that opened that kind of fit into what I hear a lot of. We want this, but it simply wasn't supported. So that's kind of a personal disappointment. They didn't. They didn't. So what you've got in front of you is kind of a list of the things that have happened. Now, all of those things are absolutely true and have happened. I don't push out anything that's phony or fake or whatever. But there is one business on there that has already closed, and it's just down here called the Sabah Cafe, a Middle Eastern restaurant. And it snuck out on me, I think, the day before my chamber presentation, and the individual who runs the UPS store said, you've got one that just left. So, anyway.
Well, no, the quality wasn't there. I was excited over the fact the place was going to be there because I drive to the Olive one down on James A. Reed, but it was more a matter of inconsistent. They could make one day I would have some of the best tabbouleh I ever had, and the other time the parsley was wilted in it. It's like, what did you save 2 days ago? It was disappointing.
But the things that are there in front of you, I'll kind of hit those, but not necessarily in the detail that's in front of you. The Newsroom Cafe, they have stripped off the walls of that this week. That's across from the Phillips 66 station, or Kick 66, or whatever it is now, across from Raytown High School there at 6020 Blue Ridge. Newsroom Cafe is basically going to be a breakfast and lunch venue. Again, this is a mom and pop setup. The husband is recently retired from the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department.
Old school food.
Pardon me?
Old school food.
I think so, yes. But if you drive by now, that building has been in disarray for quite a while. It's just that little corner piece there. But I was pumping gas yesterday, or maybe even this morning, they were stripping the walls off. So it's going to be a complete renovation. I think they're sinking many thousands of dollars into it, a new parking lot and the whole bit. And as you'll kind of see as we go through this list, we kind of take sort of a tour around town and kind of hit various areas. So Newsroom Cafe is the first one. Then we move over to Raytown Plaza. Haven't been at Raytown Plaza in a while. It's starting to come back. Certainly not to maybe what a lot of you may recall it some time ago, but it's starting to get some life pumped back into it, which is pretty exciting. Northcraft Flooring and Granite, even if you're not in the market for flooring or countertops, pop in there and look around. It's the interior quality of that business is equal to anything that you would find in a flooring company in Johnson County or on the plaza or wherever else. They've done wonders with that portion of the building. I think they've got maybe 15,000 square feet there at that end of it. And actually what they're doing is Northcraft's been in Raytown for quite a while, but now under new management and under the new direction that they're taking, it's not just a flooring place for Raytowners and people who live around here, but rather they're drawing in a crowd from really all over the metro now because word's getting out as to some of the things that they can do. Loomis Laundry, you know, I'm not gonna pretend that a laundromat is the sexiest project in the world, but it is something that we got a number of calls about once Neptune Laundry left. We got a number of calls and said, hey, why are they going? Where are they going? Whatever. So this is just a great amenity to have in. The Loomis Laundry folks, they use only the top-notch, highest-end Maytag stuff. I think they may actually be partners with or partly owned by Maytag. Show Me Quilting. They provide a variety of things for those individuals who, I'm completely ignorant about quilting, so I'm not going to stand here and pretend to tell you everything they do. But if you have a quilting need, whether it be a machine, whether it be materials, fabric, whatever, they've got. Dollar and Cents, which is simply just sort of a discount retailer that's there kind of in the corner. Raytown International Raceway, it started off a number of years ago, I think 3 or 4 years ago, as maybe 2,500 square feet in Raytown Plaza, where I'll call them big boys, I'm not going to say older guys, but folks who aren't kids, rekindling their love with slot cars and racetracks and things like that. Started off a few years ago with 2,500 square feet. They now have 7,000 square feet. I think this is kind of their off season right now, but I think in the evenings when it's up and running and on the weekends, I think they have quite a few guys and they're doing what they do. Home Skillet has been a project I've talked about for quite a while. They now have a sign up, and this again is a mom and pop operation, and they are slowly evolving toward completion.
Is that part of that? Was that the 5K people?
Yeah, I don't know that anybody's from the 5K, but I think they're moving into that slot anyway, or close to it. But they've got a sign up now. I think they are close to being finished on the interior. So Home Skillet should be done pretty soon. Of course, Working Class Tattoo, they moved in a couple of weeks ago. Sabah Cafe, which we said no longer exists down the road. So those are all the things from Raytown Plaza. We move up here to 63rd Street. Mike's Cycle Center, stopped in there a few weeks ago. They seem to be doing pretty well. They're kind of busting at the seams with repair work and new bikes and used bikes and whatever. Now, moving on, a couple of projects that probably got me more excited than anything else. And I think it's been a while since maybe Raytown got a new manufacturer to move into town, or some what I'd consider, well-paying, new jobs introduced. And all these other places, they obviously hire folks, but we're not talking about stellar wages. They're service industry for the most part. Heartland Fabrication and Three Feathers Construction moved into an existing building. Trying to think what their actual address is. Down around Shamrock Cabinet, kind of in the industrial area behind the Public Works building. Moved into a 25,000 square foot building there. They brought with them somewhere between 60 and 90 iron workers, which make great salaries. And Heartland Fabrication basically does two things. They manufacture specialty cutting devices for the meatpacking industry, so cutting devices and whatever, electric knives and that kind of stuff. The other thing that they manufacture are carousels, or not carousels, canisters for the Department of Defense. Now, things that go boom aren't manufactured here, but they go into the canisters and get shipped off somewhere else and are delivered to whoever. So that's a great project. And they were in Independence for a great many years. And they found a Raytown location, and they chose Raytown because in Independence, obviously, they get their electricity through Independence Electric. They found that KCP&L was actually significantly less expensive here in Raytown and provided them somewhere in the vicinity of a 30% cost savings on energy. For a manufacturer that runs a lot of CNC machines and specialty machines, that's big money that they're saving by being here in Raytown. So that's a great story. Elite Booth, about a year ago, Towncraft Wood Products. Their owner, I believe, simply retired and didn't want a succession plan or just kind of shut it down. So we were left with basically a 30,000 square foot industrial building here in Raytown with nothing to go into it. Very fortunately, Elite Booth moved in, and they manufacture restaurant interiors, booths, chairs, tables, that kind of stuff for national restaurants really all over the country. So we're great to have them here too. Another manufacturing operation. I think they have somewhere in the vicinity of about 30 employees. Of course, Google Fiber. You know, it's kind of an economic development thing. It's kind of a community development thing. It's kind of a utility. It's whatever. But Google Fiber, I've gotten a lot of questions actually just this week about where's Google Fiber? Why aren't they here? What's going on? What they've done thus far is simply put the pipe in the ground. That's it. And they're in the process of actually putting the cable through that pipe in the ground right now. So the reason that... What's that?
And hit a couple gas lines.
They've hit a bunch of everything, yes. But so Google, I've gotten a lot of calls this week about how come they haven't come knocking on my door or mailed me anything or asked me to sign up. Well, the same reason that you're not eating a Dunkin' Donut yet, because they're not ready for you. But they're getting there. So I would assume that their fiber will be in the ground, at least their main trunk line, probably here in the next 60 days. Then you'll start seeing more and more advertisements and more targeted things towards you kind of percolate up. But again, Google operates in a fairly unique manner where they don't just come and provide it to everybody. You need to sign up in advance so that they have an idea of what they call fiber hoods. So on a map, they say, okay, well, we have 50 people in this square mile that have signed up, and we've got 10 people over here. So we're at least going to go ahead and connect fiber to the 50 folks up there that has a larger market share for us. So they go to wherever they're kind of wanted, if you will. And you can go to google.com/fiber, I think, and you can actually sign up. Go ahead and sign up online. I think they want a $10 deposit or something like that.
Is that going now? Because last time I checked, they were.
It should be. I don't know that it necessarily is or not. They'll probably wait until they actually have the fiber in the ground before they start doing that. But again, that we're probably just a couple of months off from that. So the Google Fiber thing, it's coming. It's just for some folks, they say, why are they dragging their feet? Personally, I'm shocked that they're here by the end of the year. I think they're moving pretty quick. Right. I think they're moving pretty quick.
I kind of think I heard one of the guys in the Olympics today talking. It sounded like he had 22 teams.
Oh, wow. I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. They're all over the place. But it's something that Raytowners can take advantage of. But if we don't, or if Raytowners don't, all we have is really a connection from Kansas City to Lee Summit, so that Lee Summit folks can get Google Fiber. So you can look at it one or two ways. If you're really honest about it, if we don't take advantage of it, we're just kind of the trunk line to get them to a bigger market. But it's here for us to take advantage of if we're interested. Advanced Eye Care, 67th and Raytown Road, they'd had a grand reopening / expansion / they called it a reopening, but they never really closed. Added a couple new exam rooms and whatnot. They're here at the beginning of the year. At the former Buffalo Wild Wings space in the Hy-Vee Center at the end, we now have advanced eye care, or not advanced eye care, Care Spot urgent care, as well as Select physical therapy, which I think Select should be opening up pretty soon. They should be toward the end of their tenant finish, but Care Spot's great. If you have an ailment, if somebody, kid falls out of a tree, breaks his or her arm, you don't have to go to the ER, you don't have to wait in line at the hospital. You can go to a place like this and they get patched up and sent on their way. They also do clinical testing. They also do drug testing for employers and things like that. So it's open a little bit longer than a lot of other places are. I think their hours are 8 to 8, 7 days a week.
They offer a lot more care than Walgreens sort of place.
Yes. Walgreens is a great place for a flu shot, but don't quite have the array. They also do X-rays and whatnot at Care Spot too. Select physical therapy is a physical therapy place. So. Where Laurel Lanes formerly was is now Players Paradise. Players Paradise is basically a place for youth athletic teams to go and practice and train indoors. They also have some golf training equipment. So, I don't know that anybody's really good at golf, but if you want to get better,
I've never been able to find that place open.
What's that?
I've never been able to find that place open.
Really? I think a lot of his activity, have you gone on the weekends or evenings or any of that? I think that's kind of his target time. But of course, Hy-Vee fuel station, again, I'm not going to come out here and glamorize a gas station, but that was the removal of a nasty old auto dealership that just didn't look good on 350. Now it's something that a lot of folks can use. It does make it a little bit nicer. 87th Street Market, I believe, way before my time, it was a 7-Eleven. And again, it's a convenience store today. I'm not going to tell you how awesome the convenience store is, but as far as they go, it's pretty clean. It gets you what you expect at a convenience store. You can get in and out pretty easy, and it's pretty nice for that particular product. Extreme Grand Prix moved into the old Hy-Vee space next to Sutherland's. Extreme Grand Prix, indoor go-karts, amusement. You can get stuff to eat there as well. Extreme Grand Prix, to my understanding, is the largest indoor go-kart facility in something like 10 states or something. And it's all electric, so it's environmentally friendly. They don't have to remove gases and fumes and all that kind of stuff. And apparently their biggest competitor in Kansas City is in Olathe, and it's all gas-powered stuff. So they always have kind of open air areas that suck the exhaust out. So that means it's not heated or air conditioned. Ours is all electric stuff, so it's totally heated and air conditioned, so you can go year round, and it's not uncomfortable.
Major investment in that facility.
It is. It's a big investment.
For any that have grandchildren, they have like little kiddie cars. They have to be, I think, about 30 feet high, 34 inches or something like that.
Exactly.
So they have electric go-karts for small children, bounce rooms.
And I think their plan is to identify some sort of a national restaurant to be at the front of that building as well. Where kind of the overhang is where you used to drive through and maybe get your prescriptions at Hy-Vee. I think they want to kind of convert that into a nice restaurant at some point. It's just a matter of finding who that tenant is going to be. Little Caesar's Pizza, there's no signage out yet. They haven't started anything on the building, but the plans, I believe, have been approved through the city. That will be on 350, between Manfredi Chiropractic and Title Max. It's a very tiny lot. In fact, not too exaggerated. It's not too much wider than this room, probably. It'll be a drive-through only pizza place. Little Caesar's deal is you drive through, you tell them what you want, they hand it to you. So it's not necessarily pre-made days in advance, pre-made probably 20 minutes before you get there, if you will.
What's a setback variance?
What's a setback variance? Typically we have, on 350 highway, we have some design standards where buildings can't be, they have to be a certain distance from the road. And that's really and I don't really know which direction that variance went. Sandy may very well know.
No, I didn't.
Okay.
For us.
Okay. Oh, okay. BZA.
BZA.
Gotcha. And the last thing kind of on my list of things that have happened or are happening would be Dunkin' Donuts, and it's going in front of Extreme Grand Prix, where the former Hy-Vee used to be. It should be open probably, I hesitate giving out somebody else's opening date. I'd be shocked if it wasn't open.
Month.
Yeah, toward the end of October, probably.
Looking at the construction.
Yes, it's probably a relatively safe bet that you can get a Halloween donut at some point. So, but we will see. The other thing that I think is in your packet there is, if you didn't hear, we had an encounter with Walmart Neighborhood Market over the summer. That encounter is over. They're not coming back. I would actually anticipate that at some point, maybe at the beginning of next year, they might come back and look for alternate sites, but they're absolutely no longer interested in the green space. And just for the sake of clarification, that project wasn't one that we went out and recruited. They found us. In 2010, I issued an RFP that went to 300 developers around the country. It says, what can we do with this property that we have in downtown, former First Baptist Church site, the green space, if you will. Lots of developers took it. They looked at it, talked to them. They said, it's just a bad time in the economy. And at that point in 2010, things were still pretty iffy. Today, things are still relatively iffy. But I think they're getting better. So we got a couple of responses back in 2010. One was for low-income housing. There's certainly a place for that somewhere, probably not the heart of our downtown. Maybe the same type of argument that folks had with Walmart. There's probably a place for it somewhere, maybe not the heart of our downtown. The other one was for a large bridal operation. The board at that time said, go ahead and study the bridal operation, see what they have to offer, and their site plan was beautiful and whatnot. After quite a study of that particular project, it was just kind of deemed financially infeasible. It just couldn't make itself work. So the plan at that point was, let's just sit on the property, let's write it out for a few years, then we'll reissue the RFP. And that was really what the plan was. Walmart showing up kind of muddied that a little bit because we had to study what was put before us anyway. And whether you love Walmart, whether you hate Walmart, whether it's whatever the worst possible entity in the world is, as a municipality, as a government, we still have to be fair and we still have to go through the process whether we like it or not when somebody applies for something. So that's kind of what we did. And at the end of it, Walmart finally just kind of said, it's not worth it. It's obvious that we're not really loved at this particular site, so we're done. So they went away. There is no chance that it will ever come back and be interested in the green space again. But again, I don't know this as a fact, but I would be surprised if maybe after the first of the year they didn't come back and say, okay, where else can we be? Can we consider? So let's see. A couple of weeks ago, I reissued the RFP, kind of brought it up, modernized it a little bit, started sharing it out with all kinds of developers. We're having a pre-proposal meeting next Friday. I don't know if anybody's going to be there. I have no idea if anybody's going to be there. But basically what the RFP says is, what as a developer, as a professional who's done something like this, what can you foresee here? What can you do? What can you imagine that's feasible, that's realistic, that works within the market, and can help us kind of research our downtown? Now, one thing that I think Richard may have laughed at this when I showed it to the group before in the chamber, but I had this slide up that says no unicorns. I love, fantasy things. I don't love fantasy projects. I'm asking for realistic projects. So what I don't want is somebody to say, well, we can have a $500 million shark aquarium in the heart of downtown Raytown. That's not going to happen. No offense to anybody, but that's just not going to happen. So I'm asking for real projects. What can the market really bear here based on their experience as developers? It wouldn't surprise me if I got 2 responses back. Wouldn't surprise me if I got 10 or 0 responses back. I really don't have a feel for it. I'll have more of a feel for it next Friday, as hopefully council chambers fills up with developers, but who knows? And again, as we were kind of talking before dinner here, I'm a big, as many of you are, I'm a big fan of code enforcement. We've got to keep our own stuff clean. And, when we have guests come to our homes, we typically spend a little bit of time cleaning up. Regardless of how you normally keep your home, you spend some time picking up. Or at least I do. The same kind of happens when developers come to town. They don't always let us know they're coming to town. Or we'll talk about a property on the phone and then they'll show up and they'll say, it's great that you met us here, but we drove by a whole bunch of stuff on the way here and we have X number of dollars to spend on a new building. Are we going to put it here where maybe there's peeling paint and tall weeds and whatever else? Or are we going to go, to Lee Summit or Independence or to Liberty or somewhere else with the same amount of money where maybe it's a nicer welcome mat, if you will? So that's one of those things where I was trying to, Mike mentioned that I mentioned to the chamber that, paint and Roundup are 2 really cheap investments that can really dramatically help your property value. And, a lot of folks have read about Chris Payne, who's come to town and bought a number of properties and done a number of developments. And Chris hates it when I say this, but we've basically enabled him to buy a lot of properties at not a lot of money because we haven't painted or mowed. And so, and we've also got sort of this mentality amongst a few, I'm not going to say everybody because that'd be wrong. We've got this strange mentality that a developer is going to show up someday and give you your retirement money for your building. If that developer shows up, that developer is going to give you just enough money to cover the cost of your blighted building, not of how you imagine your building may be. So, if that would happen, you're not going to get, the Brinks truck rolling up. You're going to get the value of a blighted, dilapidated property that you haven't taken care of. So, that's kind of that's kind of that. And with that, that's kind of my presentation. But I'd love to answer any questions or entertain any questions that you guys may have about just kind of what's going on in town or whatever.
Costco, please bring us a Costco to that space.
They won't. And I actually dealt with Costco quite a bit in my previous life. I was an economic developer, spent 6 years as a commercial contractor trying to learn kind of the other side of development. All the economic development folks kind of had the same body of knowledge, and I kind of wanted to learn a little more hands-on stuff. What happens after our hands or after we do our stuff? Spent a number of years in commercial construction, and Costco is one of my clients. Costco's made it pretty clear that they love it that folks in Raytown and Liberty and wherever else, St. Joe even, drive over to that location because it's not really the type of store that you go to every day, like maybe a grocery store twice a week or whatnot.
That would be better service.